We're now between Pesach and Shavuos, and and I'm not going to talk about Shavuos yet, because we're still holding by Pesach. Why? Because there's a famous Ramban, and the Ramban says, very interesting Ramban, just like you have, by Sukkot, you have first day Sukkot, then you have Chol HaMoed, and then you have a new Yontif, Shmini Atzeres at the end, 8 days later. So the Ramban says, so the same thing is by Pesach. You have Pesach, 7 days Pesach, and the 8th day is Shavuos, and everything in the middle is Chol HaMoed. Everything is Chol HaMoed, except that it's little extended because they needed the 7 days for the counting of the Omer. He's got a whole long arichas, but so this is called, he said, this is called Chol HaMoed. We're still in the middle of Pesach. And until the Maisa with Rabbi Akiva, it was days of Yontif, just like Chol HaMoed is days of Yontif. So this was days of Yontif. It's just when the Roman the battles with the Romans, the wars, and then the time of Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva's Talmidim passed away. They died, and so therefore it became a time of Avelis. And now we have Avelis during this time period, but otherwise it really should be a Chol HaMoed. So we're going to talk a little bit about Pesach. I want to talk about what we take away from the Seder. The Seder is the pinnacle of the Jewish year. It is the Yesod, Yetzias Mitzrayim is the Yesod of Yiddishkeit. Yetzias Mitzrayim is mentioned, I think, 50 times in the Chumash, to my knowledge. We have so many mitzvahs which are Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim, and there's a mitzvah to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim twice a day, which is the Machlokes Ben Zoma and the Chachamim in the Seder. And the Seder is the long version of remembering Yetzias Mitzrayim. There's the long version, which is the Seder, to be Marba Sipor Yetzias Mitzrayim. And then during the year, we have to mention Lizkor, Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim, twice a day. What was the importance of Yetzias Mitzrayim? Yetzias Mitzrayim is the birthday of Klal Yisrael. Now there's a very important Ramban, and I'm sure I've mentioned it before, and I'll mention it again. There's a very important Ramban. Everybody talks about this Ramban, and he explains the importance of Yetzias Mitzrayim. The whole world, after Adam HaRishon descended into Avodah Zorah, it just totally collapsed into Avodah Zorah. It was not anything that Kodesh Baruch Hu wanted until Avram Avinu came, and he was the only person who saved the world by recognizing a Kodesh Baruch Hu. People were denying that there was a Kodesh Baruch Hu. People said, even if there is a Kodesh Baruch Hu, even if there is a God, but he can't do anything. He wound up the world, and then he took a trip to Hawaii, and is relaxing on the beach, but it has nothing to do with the world anymore. And Yetzias Mitzrayim blew up all those concepts. That's what the Ramban says. First of all, it proved that a Kodesh Baruch Hu exists, and that he has control over nature. And not only does he have control over nature, he can create nature. He can change nature. Not that he controls it. He controls the wind and makes the wind come, and makes the locusts come, and makes the hail come. But he can even control things and create new things. He turned water into blood, and then by darkness, he created a darkness that people couldn't even move. So he was in total control. He turned the nature of the world topsy-turvy. And that proved once and for all that HaKadosh Baruch Hu not only exists, but there's Hashgacha Pratis, and there was Hashgacha Pratis on every, we discussed that last time. There's Hashgacha Pratis on every individual. There was the Maisa with the Makas B'chayris, and there was one house with 5 B'chayris. B'chayrim, how'd they get 5 B'chayrim? Because the mother had affairs with a lot of guys.
5 different men.
5 different men. She had a lot of affairs with a lot of guys. So every firstborn from that guy was her first son. 5 B'chayris, 5 B'chayrim, they died in the Makas B'chayris. And HaKadosh Baruch, that's why HaKadosh Baruch came down, and only HaKadosh Baruch was able to discern and to know the history of that woman and who's a Bechor and who's not a Bechor. So it teaches us Hashgacha Pratis. That's the main takeaway of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. And you should remember for next year, this is a very important class. Everybody gets involved in all the Shetlach and this fort and that fort, and there are thousands of Haggadahs, and every year you buy a new Haggadah, and you have different Vertlach that you say. And Osher Weiss says it's very, very nice to have all these Vertlach. You know, the kids have to say a Vertel. They heard from the Rebbe taught them this. They got the sheet that they got from the Cheder, and they have to say it. And it's very important to give them attention and let them express themselves and pat them on the back and say, wow, that was such a great... But that's not Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim is telling the story. And it's very, very strange. Joshua Weiss asks a question. He doesn't really give an answer. Really, we should be telling the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And you don't find it, Kimat, in the Haggadah. Very, 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 very strange. So you have to listen to Osher Weiss and how he takes care of it, how he handles that. It should be the whole Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim should be the Iker of the Haggadah, and the Haggadah sort of skirts around it. Talks about the importance of it and the Chachamim and how they were up the whole night talking about it. And the Kriyas Yamsuf was 250 Makkahs, but what happened? That's what it should be. But anyway, that was my last. There are a lot of Baruch Hashem, a lot of videos out there today that talk about Yetzias Mitzrayim and the whole story, and it was amazing. But the Ramban says that Yetzias Mitzrayim is the foundation of Yiddishkeit. It is the foundation of Yiddishkeit because it proves once and for all. We weren't at creation. Adam HaRishon, he was born late. He was born after creation. So he never witnessed creation. So nobody ever witnessed creation. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. So why should anybody believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Yetzias Mitzrayim, all the Makkahs and everything that happened in Mitzrayim, that proved to millions of people that Hashem exists. He recreated the world. And that's why it's so important. And therefore we have so many mitzvahs which are Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim. In Kiddush we say Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim. Tefillin is Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim. Bechor, pigeon Bechor is Zeichel Yetzias. Everything is Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim. And therefore the Ramban says that this is a testimony for all the Dairos that HaKadosh Baruch Hu exists. Because what's the purpose of why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create man? Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create man? He says this is the kavanah of his creation. Ein lanu tam acher b'yitzir rishon. We have no other reason. That's what the Ramban says. We have no other reason in the original creation except that man should know about God and that God created him. This is a testimony that God exists, that Hashem exists, and that Hashem created us. That's what all this is. And everything else is a result of that. This is the kavanah of the Yetzirah, he says. This is the kavanah of the Yetzirah. And then, of course, then he says his famous line, now Kodesh Baruch Hu does not repeat, he never repeated such a stupendous act of miracles until Be'ez Hashem, when the Mashiach comes, Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to do it again, just like we had miracles, stupendous miracles in Yetzias Mitzrayim. So when in Milchemes Gog uMagog, we're also going to have, when we go out of Golus, finally get out of Golus, we're also going to have stupendous miracles that are going to make Yetzias Mitzrayim, all the miracles of the Eser Makas and Kriyas Yamsuf look like kids play. I can't imagine anything being more miraculous than Kriyas Yamsuf, and yet, I think the Navi Amos, I think it is, it's going to be even bigger. You're going to forget.
Yeah, how about a Jewish student deciding not to go to Harvard next year?
The missiles, 180 missiles from Iran.
300. Oh, min anisim agadolim. Now from
People standing and watching.
from these nisim, these nisim gedolim which are meforsamim, then we can be moida and recognize nisim nistarim. Everything, the yesod of Torah is that everything is nisim nistarim. Everything is a miracle. Kadosh Baruch Hu he didn't just control the world then at Yetzias Mitzrayim. He's constantly controlling. B'kol devareinu mikreinu. Kulam, nisim. Everything that happens to us, everything is nisim. There's no tev in the world. We've discussed it. There's no tev in the world. There's no nature in the world. And this is, we have to, this bein barabim, but whether it happens to the rabbim, to the populace, or to the yochid. That's the first lesson. That's the first yesod of the Haggadah. The first yesod of Yetzias Mitzrayim, which is the Haggadah, is Amunah in Hashem and Hashgacha Pratis. But there's another very important yesod. There are many, many themes running through the Haggadah. Many, many themes running through the Haggadah. And this is, people say that's why there's so many Haggadahs. Everybody says, Pilpul Shirim they delve into it with depth, with the Gur Aryeh, with Rav Hutner. There's so much depth in the Haggadah. And there are many, many things. But the second major theme is what it says in the Haggadah. Shabakol dover dor, oimdum aleinu lakaloseinu, v'hakadosh baruch hu matzileinu miyadam. Why the Nesivos? You've heard of the Nesivos? Nesivos HaMishpat. The Nesivos HaMishpat, Rav Yaakov Milisa. Everybody knows the Nesivos HaMishpat from Yeshiva.
And it's a street.
In Modi'in Elite there's also and he also was a big posek. He was a big posek. Yaakov Milisa, he wrote the Siddur Derech Chaim. And it's got a lot of psak halachos. He was a very giant posek in his time, and he also was a big Baal Machshava. He wrote a Haggadah called Ma'aser Nisim. He wrote a Haggadah in the Ma'aser Nisim, and he asked the kasha, and he asked the question. Kadosh Baruch Hu sent us down to Mitzrayim. And then he saved us. And now we praise him. Thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for saving us. So he asked the question, which is, it sounds a little bit like Apikorsis. Yishkayach, don't send us down to Mitzrayim and don't save us. That's the kasha. What, you put us into such a thing, 210 years in slavery, and then you save us and we say thank you. Come on, don't put us down there and don't save us. And Yaakov had to go down to Mitzrayim, and we say in the Haggadah, Onas al Pi Dibor, and his children went into Golus, and they went into slavery. What'd they do wrong? They did something wrong, such a terrible avera, such a terrible sin they did that they had to spend 210 years in slavery. It wasn't exactly 210 years, probably more like 110. If you take away, they lived there in affluence for a while until all the brothers died, and then when all the brothers died, about the time when Miriam was born, so yeah. So it was like 89 years. I think it was like 89 years, 86 years. 86 years when there was a actual slavery and throwing the kids into the river. What did they do wrong that they were chayiv like this? So this is what we have to understand, and this is what Yaakov, the Nesivos says in the Sefer Ma'aseh Nisim, in the Haggadah Ma'aseh Nisim.
Almost through that Haggadah, we say, had it again, but maybe we missed a bunch of Haggadahs. I said, okay.
No, it's a very important Haggadah.
Yeah.
Very important Haggadah. Yeah. This. It's just been redone by my neighbor, Yeshua Goldberg. He just redid it. Kadosh Baruch Hu chose Avram Avinu. Or Avram Avinu chose the Kadosh Baruch Hu. After 20 generations, 10 generations to Noach, right? And then it went down, we had the Mabul. And then after Noach, it went down again. It kept on declining. It was an avalanche declining until Avram Avinu came. And it was Makabel Schar Kulam, and he says, I'm for a Kadosh Baruch Hu. He's the first one, after all these generations, to actually, you have to study that, what that means, but to recognize the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, you're my man. And he decided to make him, his progeny, the Jewish people. This is what the world was created for. So the Jewish people are what the world was created for, to have these people. And he wants to bestow upon us the best. He wants to bestow upon us Eretz Yisrael, which is it's very, we don't understand. Not physically. I'm not talking about the physical Eretz Yisrael, but there's a spiritual Eretz Yisrael. It's a land of mitzvahs. It's a land which it creates a ruchnius that helps the person develop. But you can only be zoichet to everything there, and also to get olam haba, and that we should be the prime section of the human race. But we have to be perfect. We have to be perfect. And the fact that Avram came from Oivdei Avodah Zorah, and that's why the Haggadah has in it, Oivdei Avodah Zorah hoyo avoseinu mi'olam. That's a blemish in the religious, in the spiritual DNA of the Jewish people. Even though we got out of it, and it's hidden. You can have a DNA, it's a recessive gene. You don't see it. But a recessive gene eventually can come out in later generations. You know what a recessive gene is? If you have a certain mutation in your genetic makeup, and it's recessive, it's not in the forefront. So everything looks fine for 1 or 2 or 3 generations, and then all of a sudden this gene pops up, and it creates a person, it creates a child with a certain issue, certain problem. And you know, where'd that come from? It was his great-great-granddaddy. That's where it came from. It's called the recessive gene. Avram Avinu had recessive genes, spiritual genes. That's why he had a Yishmael. Kadosh Baruch Hu made that he should have a Yishmael, send the bad genes into Yishmael. And we see what became of Yishmael, how bad they are. Even though they believe in a Kadosh Baruch Hu, but they're monsters, they're barbarians, they're animals. Para Adam. Even though they're the only nation that... Yeah, the only...
Sold the animals.
I'm going to be taken off of YouTube for being being racist. So,
The Peri before Adam.
Because the person...
The Peri Adam. The Peri Adam, lo Adam Peri.
yeah, that's the Chafetz Chaim, Para Adam. So we talked about that. Then, so then we had Yitzchak. Yitzchak was perfect. He was devoted. He did Avodas Hashem the whole day. And look what Yitzchak had. It wasn't gone yet. Yitzchak had to have an Esav. Not only they had twins. They came out at the same time. They were twins, so they were equal. It wasn't like Ishmael came out first and get rid of him, and then Yitzchak. Esav and Yaakov came out as twins, and Esav took more bad genes, and then we had to get rid of him. We had to get rid of him. Kodesh Baruch Hu had to get rid of him. So then we're left with Yaakov, and then Yaakov had the 12 Shvatim, and these are supposed to be perfect. And then what happened? They had the Maisa with Yosef and their jealousy, and then they sold him down. They sold him as a slave. You sell your brother as a slave. How can you do such a thing? Sell your brother as a slave? It was such a pagam, selling Yosef down as an Eved to Mitzrayim, that all of the Shibud Mitzrayim, the slavery in Mitzrayim, was because of their selling. The Shvatim, all the descendants had to suffer because of that incident of selling Yosef down to Egypt as a slave.
I thought that was Rabbi Akiva, no? It wasn't.
Then later it was still around. Yes, it wasn't fixed
Now
yet.
it's finished. Now we're done.
It wasn't fixed yet.
I'm saying now it's
I don't.
Now it's the Egel, no?
So this is what Yaakov ben Lisa says. That first of all, by Rebbe Akiva, the Asuri Haruge Malchus, the 10 martyrs, they're connected the 10 brothers. So the 10 martyrs were a reincarnation, a Gilgal somehow or other, of a Nitzutz, of the neshamas of the 10 Shvatim, the 10 brothers, and they had to be martyred to die in Kiddush Hashem as a tikkun for the selling of Yosef down to Mitzrayim. It's a kasha. There are only 9 because Benjamin wasn't there, and then who was the 10th? Kitzur, and Shimon wasn't there when they sold him. Shimon had gone. Kids, you have to look up the Meforshim exactly how to get to number 10. But there were 10. The 10 brothers we suffered in Mitzrayim for the 10 brothers. Then we had the Assyria Rugi Malchus. Now, today, take up, but Shimon wasn't there. What about Shimon wasn't there? He had gone back. Shimon had gone back.
He wanted to save it.
He wanted to save, but he had to go. Reuven. Sorry, not Shimon. Reuven had gone back. Anyway, that's not my issue today. So we're not perfect. And if you look in the Chumash, we have gone through Golis Achar Golis. We thought that Yetzias Mitzrayim should be the pinnacle. We got out of Mitzrayim, we got the Torah, stood at Har Sinai, we came in marching into Eretz Yisrael, Yericho, miracles. We got Eretz Yisrael back. We built the Beis HaMikdash. Shlomo HaMelech, the Beis HaMikdash. What could be bad? What could be wrong? It wasn't ready yet. Wasn't ready yet. If you look in Rashi in the Chumash, V'choshech al Pnei HaTohim, he says this is a remez for the Arba Golios. Already at the B'riyas HaOlam, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew that there had to be a tikkun, there had to be Arba Golios, 4 exiles. And by the Bris Bein and Besorim, and you look at in Rashi in the Bris Bein and Besorim, so says Avram was an Ema Yisera, a terrible fear came over Avram Avinu. He saw the 4 Golios. He saw the 4 Golios. He saw the Golis Bavel, Greece, Modai, Edom, that Klal Yisrael is going to go into Golis. They asked Akasha what happened to Yishmael. Yishmael was so bad because Baruch didn't want to tell him about it. It says Yaakov Avinu, when he saw the ladder, he saw the malachim going up and down. These malachim were the sarim of these nations, the sar of Yavin, the sar Bavel, sar Modai, sar Edom, and this is already in the fabric. In the fabric of the world, that there's going to be 4 Golios. So when we got out of Mitzrayim, it's not over. We got out of Mitzrayim, it's not over. And this is exactly the message that we're getting in the Haggadah. It talks about Lovin, Lavan was the precursor of of Shmad. He wanted to shmad up Yaakov, and he said, "The kids are mine. I'm going to educate the kids my way." He said he wanted to take all the kids away from him. He wanted to destroy Klal Yisrael, spiritually. And then we went down to Mitzrayim, and Mitzrayim they wanted to destroy Klal Yisrael physically, put us into shibud. We wouldn't be around anymore. Put all the kids in the yar. So the spiritual golus and the physical golus, shmad and everything. This is all pre-seen. This is predetermined. It was forecasts, but all the way back from the Bris Bein and Besarim. Avram Avinu knew it. Yaakov saw it in the ladder, and then finally we got out of Mitzrayim. But this is the paradigm. This is the scenario for the next 3,000 years. B'kol dar v'dar oimdem aleinu l'kalo seinu. In each generation, they come against us to destroy us. And this is what we have to realize. And this is the message that we have to get. V'ha Kodesh Baruch Hu matzileinu miyodam. There's hope. There's hope for Klal Yisrael. And if you look, you have to study Jewish history. There's a book written by a fellow, Jacob Lanshinsky. He wasn't a very religious person, but he was a historian in his day. He says, since the destruction of the second temple, he doesn't even talk about the first temple. First temple were constantly attacked by Syria, attacked by the Philistine, attacked by Mitzrayim. Everybody attacked us. Finally, the Bovel attacked us, and they destroyed the first base of Mikdash. So we went into Golas bubble. We've hardly had a quiet time of a time. But since the destruction of the second temple, it's been 1900 years approximately, right? Up until 1948, and we've gone all over the world. Somebody made a comment. If you look at how many nations are there at the United Nations?
195.
Okay, of all the nations of all the flags that are at the United Nations, we have been kicked out of every country. And if we have not been kicked out of any of that country, it's because there never were Jews there. Any country that there were Jews, we've been kicked out. This is our fate. This is our fate. The wandering Jew. He brings down, I think I mentioned this a couple of months ago. In the 3rd century, they were expelled from North Africa, Carthage. In the 5th century, they were expelled from Alexandria in Egypt. In the 6th century, we were expelled from the provinces in France. In the 7th century, from the Visigoth Empire in Germany. 9th century, we were expelled from Italy. In the 11th century, we were expelled from Mayence in Germany. In the 12th century, again from France. The 13th century, expelled from England.
Can't do it right, yeah.
Huh?
I said the French can't do it right.
No.
It takes them twice to go to the Jews.
Yeah, the 14th century again from France. Switzerland, Hungary, Germany, Austria, Spain, Lithuania, Portugal. We're expelled from all these countries. They threw us out. The 16th, 17th centuries, Bohemia, Austria, the Papal States, Italy, Netherlands, Ukraine, Lithuania, North Africa. We're expelled from Russia, Warsaw, and Galiciana, Romania. Then the Nazis came and they
Chinese are our only friends.
and yet, we're still here. And this is what everybody recognizes. This is the most amazing thing. This is the most amazing thing. If you look at all these nations, France, it's not the same France. England, you'll give a testimony, it's not the same England. It's not the same England it once was, the English Empire, the German Empire, you know, the Spanish Empire, the Portuguese Empire. It's not the same. These are just skeletons of what used to be. Rome is a skeleton of what used to be. You want to see the Roman Empire, you go to see the ruins, the Colosseum in Rome. It's just a bunch of, it's a ruins. It's a ruins. You go to Babel, you want to see, Babel, you have to take a bulldozer and dig down to see the archaeology of Babel. You hardly even hear about it. So it's called Iraq today. It's not Babel. Iran is not Persia. Not
Go to the British Museum, you can see that.
It's all pieces of business. And they want to do that to us. They want to call us a just vestige of history. I remember I was visiting some relatives, and they took me to the Reform Temple, and I refused to go into the sanctuary. I will not give them the honor of stepping into that place of Tumah, the sanctuary. They're what they call
Reform changed it. Now it's called Little Gaza in support of ceasefire.
Yeah.
It's no longer sanctuary.
I had what to say about that, but not right now. Anyway.
Rabbi Linda.
So the head of
It's a big sneeze, yeah.
So they were so honored to have a rabbi walking around their building, even though they wouldn't go into their holy, the Tumadika place. But they brought me downstairs to the museum, right? And they had a talis, and they had a tefillin, and they had mezuzahs on every door. On the door, not on the side. They had a mezuzah in the middle of the door. Every room had a mezuzah in the middle of the door. Idiots. They couldn't even get it right. Right? But the tefillin and the Sefer Torah were in the museum. Open. It's in the museum. It's a remember the glory of what Judaism used to be. And Reform today.
What?
In Manhattan, I just saw an article. In Manhattan, there's a Reform rabbi, and you can get the video.
Clergy. They don't use the word rabbi. Clergy.
No, they called him a rabbi.
Gender specific. So
they called him a rabbi, and he gets up there.
Rabbins. They don't just take a side,
Rabbits, yeah. So he's well, this one was a he. This one was a he.
Not anymore.
He was a he.
He's a who.
And he's trying to figure out, and he's crying. There are so many Jews. There's a large percentage of Jews who are joining these anti-Israel, pro-Gaza demonstrations, and they are the loudest, and they are the organizers, and they are the forefront of these organizations. And a large percentage of them were raised in Reform temples. They came from Reform temples. Says, what did we do wrong? We have to correct ourselves. What did we do wrong that this is what we produced? And he's complaining, this is what we produced. They're all gone. Anybody they're all gone.
I saw a picture of someone with a rainbow kippah in the kafir. He was just walking around Gaza with the walls, hang him up with the kafir. You said
No, that was me. That was me.
Oh.
It got me a free ride to Harvard, so I got a full scholarship.
Mark Twain was a goy, and he says they made so much noise. All the nations, Babylonia, Madai, Porus, the Persians, the Romans, the Greeks, everybody made so much noise. The Nazis says it's going to be 1,000-year, a 1,000-year kingdom, the Reich of the German, the Aryans, right? The pure Aryans. And where are they? They're all gone. They've all risen. They made sound and splendor, and they faded into dream stuff and passed away. They're all gone. And the Jew saw them all. This is Mark Twain. The Jew saw them all. He beat them all. He is what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weakening of his parts, no slowing of his energies, no dulling of his alert and aggressive minds. All things are mortal but the Jew. All forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his own immortality? This is Mark Twain, a goy. It's a goy. Who's Mark Twain? He was an American writer in 100 years ago.
Mark Twain.
Mark Twain.
You don't know who Mark Twain is?
I need to read his books. I heard so many amazing quotes of him.
Yeah, yeah.
He has
Yeah,
amazing
there's Yesh Chachma B'Goyim. Yesh Chachma B'Goyim.
He said,
There's in the Four Sons. When
my favorite one is, he said, I'm
The-
old and I went through a lot of in my life, a lot of trouble. Some of it really happened.
one of the highlights,
1899.
one of the highlights of the Haggadah is the Four Sons, and I remember I have very, very fond memories of my Sidorim, and I heard it from Asa Widow, and he always quoted a certain Haggadah. I think it was the Kerem Svi. I'm not sure.
Oh, can see.
From England.
Yeah, my father's Rebbe.
Yeah, yes.
Lithuania. He came to England often.
So he has a
Father,
Faber, yes. So he explains that they were living in that time in a very, when Yidden were throwing off Yiddishkeit. That was the generation of your grandparents, my grandparents. People were throwing off Yiddishkeit. So he says, what are the four sons? The four sons are four generations. You have the Chacham. He's the yeshiva boy. He's the religious Jew. And he has a Seder. And he has a Seder properly. He davens every day. He learns every day. And he keeps all the mitzvahs. He keeps Shabbos. And he's the Chacham. He's the wise son. He's the immigrant. The immigrant that went to England or to America. We had the immigrants. The immigrants came over from Europe. And then the influence of the modern society in the West. And then he has a child. And these are the children who are throwing it off. They want nothing to do with it. Remember those people? They wanted nothing to do with it. They ran away. They threw their tefillin over when they came to the port in the Hudson River, they threw the tefillin over the boat. This is a new country. We don't need it anymore. That's the Russia. But he saw a Pesach Seder by his father. And he says, what is all this? Mazos. What is this avoda to you? What are you doing? All this hard work preparing for Pesach, and then you got to say the Haggadah, and they got to eat all that matzah. This is good. But at least he saw a Seder. As he got older, he mellowed a little bit. And he also still wanted to have a Seder. He wanted to have a remembrance, the ritual. The ritual is very historically meaningful to him, to keep his connection to his people. So he also had a Seder. And then who is his son? His son is the Tam, a simple son. So the simple son, he went to his father's Seder, but his father, he wasn't rebelling against anything. He wasn't rebelling against anything. And then he remembers that his grandfather was at the Seder, and his grandfather opened up a book and he started saying the Haggadah, which the kid didn't understand. And he says, Mazos, what is all this? He didn't understand what's going on. And his father never taught him. He's the simple son. His father never taught him. He only saw the grandfather. So he had a little bit of a Jewish experience here. Meet all these people like in the street, these non-religious secular Jews, and say, oh, I remember I had a grandfather. They only have it only goes up to the grandfather, the great grandfather, then it stops. If they're past that, they don't have a grandfather or great grandfather. It stops, because then we get to the next generation, the generation of the Tam, the son of the Tam. He doesn't have a Seder. Because his grandfather was the Rosh. The Rosh couldn't care less. Doesn't teach him anything. His father is the Tam, is the simple son. And he doesn't know how to run a Seder. So the Ein Yodei Lishol, he doesn't even see a Seder. So he totally loses it. And this is what Rav Farber said are the 4 generations. It's going to be lost. That's what they prophesized in those days. In the 1940s, they said they prophesied it's going to be lost. It's over. It's not going to happen. And it's true. As we see from the large percentage of Jews who are fighting, who are demonstrating in these pro-Palestinian demonstrations, they've lost it. They have no feeling for Yiddishkeit. They have no feeling for Eretz Yisrael. They have no feeling for anything. They just want to destroy everything. And their brothers in Israel, they hold that the poor Palestinians are more important than their brothers in Israel, their cousins in Israel. That's 80% of the Jews. If you look at all the prognoses and all the statistics, 80% of the Jews are going to be unaffiliated. In the Pew report, 80% of Jews are unaffiliated. They don't believe. Where's that number 80% come from? 4/5. 4/5. When we went 4/5, Chamushim. When we went out of Mitzrayim, only 1/5 went out. 4/5 got lost. And that's what's happening today. 4/5 got lost. But 1/5 got out. Chamushim got out. And this won't happen. And if we look at the miracle happened after World War II, a rebirth, the Baal Tshuva movement, there's the Yeshiva movement, the Frum, there's this Frum and that Frum, and we have all sorts of flavors of Frum. All sorts of flavors of Frum. White shirt, blue shirt, colored shirt, but they're all Frum. Yeah. All sorts of flavors of Frum all over the world with yeshivas and with day schools. It's flourishing. This won't happen because there's a promise from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, B'kol dor v'dor, Omdem Aleinu L'Kaloseinu. Not just the Goyim are Omdem Aleinu L'Kaloseinu, but even the forces, the Yetzer Hara is Omdem Aleinu L'Kaloseinu. V'HaKadosh Baruch Hu Matzileinu Miyodam. V'HaKadosh Baruch Hu Matzileinu Miyodam. And this is the message of Pesach, that from the Nisim Gedolim, we have to look at the Nisim Nestorim, and this is what my son Chaim mentioned before. Look for the Nisim Nestorim. Nisim Nestorim was pretty big Nisim. Was it 2.5 weeks ago? Motzi Shabbos?
So can you translate that? Hidden miracles?
There are hidden miracles. Hidden miracles all over the place. And not so hidden. That's what they want to say. We had 2 incidents that happened. It was 3 weeks ago on that Motzi Shabbos, and Iran sent 300 missiles and unmanned aircraft, the drones, the kamikaze drones at Eretz Yisrael. 300, from that whole blast, that whole onslaught that they sent to us, what happened? Nothing. 3 Arabs died in Jordan. 3 Arabs died in Jordan, and 1 Bedouin girl in the south was wounded by shrapnel, but none of them hit. None of them, human damage. Nobody was hurt from any. I don't even know if there was any physical damage. A little physical damage from the missiles, and they had 99% success rate in shooting them down. So there was a physicist, an American fellow, a physicist, and he worked several years in the defense industry. His name is Abitpal. He's a physicist, and he's worked in the IDF, in the defense ministry. And after he went through he went through the statistics. He said this is very complicated to the defense, the domes, all the different domes that they have. It's not that It's one unit. There are different sections, different people. There are different things that happened. Some of them were artillery shooting them down. Some of them were aircraft, jets shooting down the missiles. There were all sorts of different factors going into it. He says it was so complicated. It was so complicated. He did the statistics, and he said the best algorithm that he could come up with for success was not even 90%. He says if it would have been 90% protection, it would have been a miracle with everything that could have gone wrong. And they claimed that it was 99%. It just didn't happen. Whatever the reasons was, it was shot down, or it was misfired, it went the wrong way, it was shot down by the Jordanians. All of a sudden, our dear friends, the Jordanians, they also sent some aircraft to shoot them down. Like, you know, what kind of mishigas got into their head that they decided to join?
Maybe those Reform rabbi actually made a bracha for Jordan because it used to be called Trans-Jordan.
Yeah.
That's their school.
That's their school. That's what he said. That's, I'm not making. That's what the
Yeah.
what Linda said. Yep, you saw it, right? You saw Robert.
Oh my.
Trans-Jordan.
We have to recognize this was a miracle. The fact that nothing happened. Motzei Shabbos, 2 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden all the air raid sirens go off, and you see them coming over the Kaisel, like, you know, and everybody's watching them over the Kaisel, over the mosque, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. One landed in near Arad, and they made a park out of it, and like they had it carted away because people were using it to climb on. And then what happened on Erev Pesach? 2 Arabs, they drive up, they go to Kiryat Belz. 2 Arabs drive up into Kiryat Belz, and they rammed some people, and then the car crashed into another car. So they got out of the car, and you see pictures, a video of it, and they got a submachine gun, and it jammed. They couldn't get one bullet out of it. And there's a whole bunch of Hasidim standing there waiting to do Sreifus Chametz. They'd just been rammed. A couple of them are lying on the floor, and nothing happened to them. Even though you see them going flying over the car, nothing happened to them. They came out with a couple of scratches. And then one Chassid, he runs over to see the car crashed. He wanted to see what happened to the car. He sees the submachine gun, and he runs the other way. And the guy couldn't get one bullet out. It jammed. V'hakadosh Baruch Hu matzileinu miyadam.
The biggest nace of that whole thing is, in 2 weeks he'll be out of jail.
And the Haggadah finishes up with
That's Teva. That's Teva.
well, they didn't shoot anybody. Nobody died. So therefore, the judge has to let him off because they didn't commit any crime yet.
It's not because he did it only because he fighted with his wife in the house. It's not.
It's
Mercy on him.
He's poor. He's a poor guy. You know?
Why they didn't shoot
Didn't have a
him?
job, no one gave him a job.
Why they didn't shoot them on the spot?
What was supposed to do?
With the Hasidim? With what?
There were some Belzers there. They didn't have any guns.
And the army didn't catch them?
Finally, they were caught by the police, I think. They called the police.
Because we didn't have army.
They weren't shooting yet. They weren't shooting.
They go.
Well, nobody would have said
It jammed. But how do we end up the Haggadah? We end up the Haggadah with Chad Gadya, right? We end up the Haggadah with Chad Gadya. There's Zechariah Wallerstein, Zatzal. He was a fantastic speaker. He was a Marbitz Torah in America. You know, Zechariah Wallerstein. He was a top-notch, top Marbitz Torah in America. And he's got an article. He recollects he was sitting in his office, and a collector came. A collector came, like, you know, asked him, and he was about to, a schnorr. I didn't want to use that. I'm being taped. I can't put these people down. So the collector.
Thank you, Chaim.
What's your address?
So he's about to write out a check, and he says, "Rabbi, listen, I want to ask you a question on the Haggadah, right? If you can't answer the question, if you can answer the question, you don't have to write out a check. If you can't answer the question, I want you to double it. Fair deal? Is that fair? If you can answer the question, you don't have to write me a check. You just gave me my my reward. If you cannot answer the question, I want you to double what you were about to write. Okay, fair enough. It says we have Chad Gadya. So the guy, he buys a goat for 2 zuzim, for two shekel, right? Then a cat comes and eats the goat. And then a dog comes and eats the cat. And a stick comes and hits the dog. And then a fire comes and burns up the stick. Then water extinguishes the fire. And then a cow drinks the water. And then the shaychet comes and slaughters the cow. Right? And then the angel of death, the Malach HaMavis, he kills the shaychet. And then a Kadosh Baruch Hu, he kills the angel of death. Okay? Very nice. Okay. I understand. Cats eat dogs. We're talking about a bobcat, not a little tiny. I mean, talking about bobcat, wild cat. So cats eat goats. Goats. I understand that. And dogs eat cats. Right? I understand.
Who's
But that makes sense.
the bad guy?
But not about a bad guy. It makes sense. We understand that cats eat goats, and dogs eat cats, and fire burns up wood, and water puts out fire, right? And shaychet kills a cow, and the Malach HaMavis, we understand he kills this, right? Everything makes sense. I have a question. How did the stick hit the dog? Sticks don't hit dogs. People hit dogs. They take a stick. So say the man took a stick and he hit the dog. Why are you saying the stick hit the dog?
Well, water
So, Rabbi-
doesn't come and put out fire. That's okay.
But if it falls into the water, it could do it by itself. You don't need a person to extinguish the fire. It could have a rain, or torrential rain, or a flood. But a stick doesn't hit a dog.
And fire is
So Rabbi Wallerstein is sitting there. He says, "Okay, you got me." He takes out his checkbook. He's about to write it out. He says, "Rabbi, just one second. Let me tell you the teretz." Oh, okay. Let me tell you the teretz. When you see that a stick is hitting the dog, you know that there's somebody holding the stick. Now, if you don't see anybody holding the stick, who is that? It's a Kodesh Baruch Hu who's holding the stick. Kodesh Baruch Hu is holding the stick and hitting the dog. So once you see the stick, means that Kodesh Baruch Hu is doing everything. So by everything else, who was controlling the cat? Kodesh Baruch Hu. Who was controlling the dog? Kodesh Baruch Hu. Who was controlling the cow that drank the water? Kodesh Baruch Hu. Who was controlling the Malach HaMavis? Kodesh Baruch Hu is controlling everybody. We see from the stick that a Kodesh Baruch Hu, Hashgacha Pratis, nothing happens by itself. And a Kadosh Baruch Hu is running the world and creating the whole sequence of events. Triple. Rabbi Wallerstein said, triple. And he tripled it. And this is the message. This is the message of the Haggadah. No matter what happens, it's not the army. They're pouncing on the Rav Yosef, Yitzchak Yosef. He said it's people learning Torah are saving us from the Hamas. No, it's the army. Army's not doing anything. You see, the army when they couldn't protect us from 300. They couldn't protect us on October 7th. They couldn't protect us from 300 missiles. Everything's a miracle. Everything's a miracle, and we're going to see one miracle after another. As long as we are pinning it on our prowess, on our abilities, it's not going to happen. We have to recognize that Kodesh Baruch Hu is in charge. The Kodesh Baruch Hu, no matter b'kol dor v'dor, Om D'Malei L'Chaloseinu, and we daven that this should be the last Om D'Malei L'Chaloseinu, right? The Hamas, and we should be finished with it. And a Kodesh Baruch Hu Matzileinu Miyodam. That's it.